Hey everyone, Writer JJ89 here, and I am bringing you my first Outriders build video. I've had some people requesting that I make a video on my Trickster build, and decided I would finally go ahead and do it. So, just going to try and make this pretty quick here. I don't want the video to be too long. Going to go over the pieces that we're using, mods that we're using, skills, and the class tree, and then we'll talk about the rotation and what I think works best. So we'll go ahead and start with taking a look at the build. I got a lot of things transmogged here, so it's not going to look exactly like you think it might, but that's okay. We'll go over what each piece actually is. We'll go ahead and start with the first weapon here is actually the Anemoy. We're running it with the Moaning Winds and Clip Combustion, since Moaning Winds got changed and it's a universal cooldown for 8 seconds. We only run one copy of this mod. So we're pairing it with Clip Combustion because it gives us another 100,000 damage. It's not a lot, but with the reload mechanic that we use, it just adds on a little bit more damage. The second shotgun we're using is the Guillotine. We're running it with Radiation Splash since that also got a buff. And we are, again, comboing it with Clip Combustion. The cooldown for Clip Combustion is only 2 seconds, so it's not going to be as long of a wait, especially if you can wait a couple seconds just between doing your reloads. You'll be able to get that Clip Combustion twice. For our pistols, we are using the Torment and Agony, and you see we're using Fortress. You're probably wondering, well, Fortress got changed, doesn't just offer that free damage anymore, why were we using it? Well, before the update for New Horizon, we were just using Fortress to give us a plain buff on our damage. It was very easy to have, it was a staple, and that's what we used. We also didn't do any kind of shooting whatsoever. Now, we actually use Fortress to start our rotation to get the extra armor, resistance, and damage buff. The great thing about the Torment and Agony is that it has a very high rate of fire, 750. So hitting your shots on enemies to get the Fortress buff does not take long at all. And you can tell that you have it because your hands will start glowing green. So that's it for the weapons. We'll talk about the gear now. I really like using the Edge of Time gear, and with the Exosuit Transmog, looks really awesome. I actually made a build before the update that was the actual Exosuit pieces, but it just wasn't nearly as strong as Edge of Time. So we're using the goggles of the Edge of Time, comes with anomaly power, cooldown reduction, and skills life leech. We're using double slice, so damaged enemies are additionally cut with an anomaly slice, dealing 50% damage. We're using Captain Hunter, so we get damage against elites increased by 25%. We are using a Predator's Mantle. Really, this can be any purple chest piece. You really don't want to use the Edge of Time chest piece because you can't get rid of both the Cyclone Slice mods. And since we don't use Cyclone Slice, then it can leave you with a dead mod slot. So we're using any purple chest piece, again with anomaly power, cooldown reduction, and skills life leech. We are using the Claws mod, which is a Devastator specific mod that you can only get from a Devastator piece. It's the Statue's Hands. So that inflicts vulnerable on all enemies hit with your melee skill, which gives us increased damage. We also use no resistance against the Fortified, which increases our resistance piercing by 50% of our armor piercing, which we do stack into because armor piercing is on our pistols, and we also have a couple of our nodes that increase our resistance piercing as well. You'll see more about why we do that here in a moment. For our pants, we're using the Pants of the Edge of Time with anomaly power, cooldown reduction, and skills life leech. We're using Unstoppable Force, which is a pyro mod. So you see we're using some mods from different characters here, so it is a little bit of a grind to get all the mods for this build, but it's totally worth it. So Unstoppable Force is a pyro mod. I believe it comes on one of the reforged pieces, if I remember correctly, but you can easily find this information online. that increases our anomaly power by 50% of our resistance piercing. So, since our resistance piercing is increased by our armor piercing, and our tree nodes also increase our armor piercing and resistance piercing, we can actually get quite a bit of anomaly power, even base right now in the camp, and also while we're in the middle of combat, you'll notice that your anomaly power can go a lot higher as well. And we're also using Strong Slice. Very basic Temporal Blade mod, increases our skills damage by 96,000. That's a must-have if you're looking to put out some serious damage. Next, we're using the Gloves of the Edge of Time. It has max health, cooldown reduction, and skills life leech. Before the update that increased the max health, I didn't really like using max health at all because it was a wasted stat. You only got like 800 points from it. Now that it offers over 4,400, it's actually worth having at least one of these for some extra survivability. Because as you're going to notice, we don't use any survivability mods, no defense mods on this build, other than what we get from Fortress. So we're using Slasher. For our Temporal Blade, it lets us activate the skill one more time before triggering the cooldown, so we get 2 blades. And we also use Cut Loose, which reduces our Temporal Blade cooldown by 20%. So that's your Edge of Time pieces. And lastly, we're using any purple boots. Again, you don't want to use the Edge of Time boots because 1, it has max health on it, and 2, it has Temporal Armor. And you can keep that if you like. If you are looking for some additional damage, then or health or armor. If you're looking for more armor, Temporal Armor is great for that because it increases your armor based on the number of enemies affected by a Temporal Blade. Then definitely go ahead and do that if you feel like you need that extra survivability. Go ahead and swap out the boots for the Edge of Time and use purple gloves. So for the boots, we got Anomaly Power, Cooldown Reduction, Skills Life Leech. We're using Power Assimilation, which gives us Anomaly Power 11,000 for each elite present on the battlefield. So that can be quite a big boost, especially when you have a lot of alphas on the board. Since they count as elites, you can get quite a bit of Anomaly Power just for them being on the battlefield. They don't have to be even near you. And Untamed Power. We're going to talk more about Untamed Power here when we talk about the skill rotation, but this is basically free damage. We're using our skills so much that we're getting a lot of extra damage just from Untamed Power. Every time we use a skill, we deal 56,000 damage to enemies with a 5-meter radius of us, and that scales to be 30% of your Anomaly Power. So you see it's 56,000 right now, with my base Anomaly Power at 187,000, but when we're in combat, that's going up. It's going to be more than double. You're going to see a lot more damage coming from Untamed Power. You'll see at the end on your stat sheet that Untamed Power is going to be one of the highest things that does damage on your damage column. So that's going to be it for the gear and the weapons. Let's take a look at the skills. So for our skills, we're using Temporal Blade, we're using Venator's Knife, and we are using Hunt the Prey. So we want to get behind them, we want to slice them, and then we want to knife them. We're going to talk more about that rotation in a moment. So let's take a look at the class. We're using the Reaver tree, and this is a pretty standard layout for a Reaver Trickster. So we have our Anomaly Power, we have Resistance Piercing, more Anomaly Power. Using a melee increases our Anomaly Power, more Anomaly Power and cooldowns. And the one that I wanted to really talk about here is the Leap of Clincher, which activating your movement skill increases your resistance piercing by 25% for 10 seconds. And also Scion of the Void. At the end of any damage skill, increase your armor piercing by 30% and your resistance piercing by 25% for 10 seconds. Both of these together, when they activate, are going to further increase your Anomaly Power because of Unstoppable Force. and the no resistance against the fortified, those combined, you're getting a major anomaly power buff just with these two nodes. So, as far as the rest of the nodes here that we're using, we're going to be using the Shadow's Embrace to increase our firepower by 15%. Since we're kind of shooting more in this build with the pistols, why not do a little bit more damage? We get 15% more firepower. The Shielded Readiness is okay, but this can really hinder your healing from what I've been seeing. It makes so you can't heal when you kill enemies in close range, which you normally get 20% of your health. Instead, you just get 40% shield. So instead of getting 20% health and 20% shield, you're now going to get 0% health and 40% shield. I think that having Shielded Readiness off and using Shadow's Embrace instead is going to be better for keeping our health and our shield up. And the Altered Executioner, that's pretty standard mod. For each enemy in close range, your anomaly power is increased by 6%. So these are pretty standard nodes for a Reaver Trickster. So I want to go ahead and go over the rotation that we do. And you're going to see this because after I'm done discussing the build, I'm going to show you guys some gameplay that shows you how the rotation works and the kind of damage that you can do. So when we start our rotation, the first thing that we're going to be doing is using our pistols to shoot an enemy. It doesn't matter what enemy. You just want to shoot enemies until you get the Fortress buff. You're then going to have 10 seconds to get through your skill rotation. That's plenty of time. So you're going to use your pistols, get Fortress activated. You're then going to go ahead and hunt the prey. So you get behind an enemy. You're going to then start buffing your anomaly power. Then you're going to go ahead and melee. When you melee, you activate Claws. That inflicts vulnerable on all enemies hit with your melee skill. So now you've activated Fortress, you've used Hunt the Prey to get behind an enemy, and now you've used your melee to inflict vulnerable and do damage, and you've now buffed your anomaly power again because of our anomaly scything node that gives us 30% anomaly power for 5 seconds. 5 seconds is plenty of time. Now, after you melee, you're going to Temporal Blade twice. You're going to use them both at once. You're going to slice, and you're going to slice again. Immediately after you slice, you're going to throw your Venator's Knife. You want to make sure you throw your Venator's Knife before the Temporal Blade damage completes, because that is what's going to give you the double damage. Now, some of you that have ran Anomaly Power Tricksters, and I have had people ask about this and let me know they didn't even know why we did it this way. A lot of people throw the Venator's Knife before the Temporal Blade, so they get the double damage on the first blade instead of from the second. And if you're not using Untamed Power, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with doing that. However, when you're running Untamed Power, as soon as you throw the Venator's Knife and you go to activate your Temporal Blade, the Untamed Power activates first, and the damage from that will waste the buff from Venator's Knife. But if you throw the Venator's Knife after your Temporal Blades, Untamed Power can't affect the double damage, and you get the maximum damage you can possibly get. So that is your rotation for your skills. After that, you would go ahead, if you needed to do extra damage or you're getting swarmed by ads, go ahead and switch to your Anemoy, and then switch to your Guillotine to do the Moaning Winds and the Radiation Splash, and then switch back over to your pistols and start over again. Now, when you switch over from your pistols, you will lose your Fortress buff. The buff is only for 10 seconds, so you should have already finished your rotation, so losing the buff is really not that bad. And you don't have to use the Fortress if you're just killing ads. If you're facing elites, captains, bosses, etc., then yes, you want to go ahead and get your Fortress going again before you use your skills. If you're just killing ads, you don't need the Fortress buff. So that's it for the gear, the skills, the class tree, and the rotation. I'll go ahead and play a clip after this that will go ahead and show the rotation on the City of Nomads so you can see how it's done, and then let me know if you guys have any questions. Feel free to comment below with any questions that you have. I'm also on Reddit, and I'm also on Lieutenant Buzz Lightbeer's server on Discord. Thanks for watching and enjoy the footage.
The Outriders here! Bring it on! Everyone get ready!
You're wasting my time and ammo. Leave!
Look, I got people to feed and shelter here. Just take the pod and fuck off. I got no more beef with you.
Fine. But you start running this place like you did under Skurlock, I will come back. Just for you, King.